Okay, so lesson 4.7 is quadratic formula. Lesson 4.5 was factoring. When factoring fails, we can move on to other methods. Okay, so 4.5 was factoring. 4.6 was completing the square and solving using square root. So those are options, right, depending on the setup of the problem. I'll be honest, completing the square. How often do you think you're just going to magically use completing the square unless you have to? It's probably not, it's not going to be one of your go-tos, right? For me, factoring is going to be one of my go-tos. And if factoring fails, quadratic formula is going to be my next go-to usually. Okay, but quadratic formula is the, when all else fails, quadratic formula. Lane, if that's what I think it is, put it up. We're not on phones. Okay, quadratic formula. Given ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, right? So quadratic formula, just like factoring, we need to equal 0. Period, end of statement. Okay? Then we can use the quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Go ahead. I'm trying to read your mind, but go ahead. Yeah. Yes, I will most likely provide that. You know what? I need to add that to my list of things to do is figure out, did I give you guys the wrong chapter 4 formula page? Or did I just put it all on the test last year?
We were talking about that yesterday.
Yeah, I know, and that's, I'm putting it on my list of things to do because I didn't look into it and figure out.
So you talking about
I know I've provided it. Okay, I'm nice, algebra 2 I provided. Now, pre-cal, I expect my pre-cal kids to know it.
That's scary.
Okay, now keep in mind, is this your first introduction to quadratic formula?
No, I think no.
No?
I did not. I don't remember that.
I wouldn't have said geometry.
I don't remember this.
Algebra 1 is quadratic formula.
I don't remember that.
Now,
Now you say it though, it does kind of sound.
oh, you've done quadratic formula.
Was it
I think I've heard the name, but.
Was in algebra.
There's no way we did that a year ago.
Yes, we did.
No.
No, we did
I
not.
know we did.
So quadratic formula
Or do you know?
was chapter 9, and I believe chapter 9 hit before 14. So,
That's exactly.
okay, here we go. 1A. Now, and here's the thing. In all honesty, do I care if you've seen this before or not?
No.
No, because I'm going to teach it. You have this opportunity to learn it, right? Don't give me the excuse of, oh, I've never learned this before. Okay, so you're starting from scratch. That's fine. You can still learn it today.
We're at disadvantage.
Okay? So, 2x squared minus x equals 4. What's the first question we have to check here?
Does it equal 0?
Does it equal 0?
No.
Does it equal 0? No. We know how to make this equal 0, though, right? That's old news?
Yeah.
How do I make this equal 0?
Subtract 4 from both sides.
Okay. I'm going to subtract 4 over, and then I'm going to write my new equation, which is 2x squared minus x minus 4 equals 0. Got it? Now, you might try something like product of AC if you don't have specific directions here. But product of AC would not, there wouldn't be any values that would work for the correct product and sum. So, our plan B is quadratic formula. Now, we've done this a lot this year in that, well, I'll just use, can you tell me your ABCs? A is 2 because it's in front of x squared. Okay, B? Negative 1. It's the invisible number in front of x. C? After I made it equal to 0, this plain old constant hanging out right here is negative 4. Okay, so we got our ABCs, right? Our job is to plug them into this formula here. So, let's go for it. Because we're trying to solve for x, I'm always going to start off by saying x equals. If I was solving for y, it'd say y equals. M, it'd say m equals. Okay. Negative b. What do I mean negative b? Right. And I don't know how I've written this in the past. I mean, for beginners, we could think it's the negative of -1, but what am I going to make that my next step?
Positive.
Positive 1. So go ahead and write it as positive 1 if you want. Plus or minus, that right there indicates I'm going to have two answers. B squared. So I'm going to write it in this step as -1 squared minus 4 times A, which is 2, times C, which is -4. All over
2 times A,
2 times A,
which is
2
2.
times 2. That can get you partial credit on a quiz or a test problem, guys. Taking the time to write that out. I strongly encourage you to do that. Don't skip over the steps. Some of you will try and get fancy and skip the steps and, oh, I can do this all in my head. I don't encourage it. It tends to backfire at times. Okay, so let's work on some cleanup. If you didn't already, the negative of -1 is positive 1. Plus or minus. Square root. Now, -1 squared
1.
is positive 1, yes? When you square that negative, I don't care if your calculator tells you it's a negative. That just means you didn't put it in your calculator right. Because you want to put parentheses around the negative value when you're squaring it. And so, I'm trying to look and see how many steps I put on my notes. Okay, so 1. Now, right here, there's -4 times 2 times -4. You can do this as you want. I tend to multiply my numbers and then put a sign on it. So if I just ignore signs for a moment, and I multiply my numbers, 4 times 2 times 4. 4 times 2 is 8, times another 4 is 32. Now, if I go back and think about my signs, it's a -4 to begin with, times a -4 down here. What's a negative times a negative? Positive. So this is going to be plus 32 in my parentheses. Okay? And here's my deal. If you think that through differently, did you end up with 1 plus 32 under your radical? Okay? All over 4. And keep writing that in. I know some people, every year I get some people, they just want to skip writing in and put it in at the end. But then they forget to put it in at the end. Okay? Okay, continuing to clean up. 1 plus or minus the square root of 33 all over 4. What do you know about the square root of 33?
It's the square root of 33.
Not a perfect square.
Okay, not a perfect square. It's some fun decimal. It's the square root of 33. So, guess what? That's your answer. You're done. Let me ask this, though. How many answers do I have here? Do I have 2?
Well, kind of. You plus minus. Like 4.
Because we have the plus or minus, we have 2 answers. One answer is whatever the value of 1 plus the square root of 33 divided by 4. That's one answer. What's my other answer then? 1 minus the square root of 33 divided by 4. So we do have 2 answers, and it's that plus or minus. So we're continuing our trend in this chapter of, hey, guess what? There's 2 answers. Okay? Questions? Okay, should we try B? Doesn't hurt to kind of stay a step. And by the way, I only went this far. I stopped here because I couldn't take the square root of 33. Obviously, if you can take that square root, you go farther. Okay? I just couldn't take that square root. So, okay, x squared plus 6x plus 9 equals 0. What's that first question I've got to ask myself? Does it equal 0?
Yes.
Okay, it equals 0. That's a good sign. I would like to go ahead and identify my ABCs. And I get it. Most of you probably aren't going to write your ABCs down. I don't care. A is what?
1.
Because why? It's in front of the x squared. Okay? B is
6.
6 because it's in front of the x. C is
9.
9 because it's the constant. Okay? The number by itself. Okay, we got our ABCs. I'm going to start off by saying x equals. Go back to that formula. Negative b. So it's a negative of 6 plus or minus the square root of b squared. So I'm going to write it as 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 9. Because that was minus 4 times a times c. All over 2a, 2 times 1. Okay. Again, that can get you a point for me. I know Math Excel doesn't give you a point for this. But, you know, if this is a multiple, well, everything on my quiz and test are multiple points. I'm going to give you credit for at least setting up your quadratic formula right. Okay? Make a math mistake in the next step. Okay, well, we're not going to get the full points, but negative 6 plus or minus. What's 6 squared? 36. Minus 4 times 1 times 9.
36.
Okay, so 4 times 1 times 9 is 36. And there's just a minus sign here, right? So it's going to carry down as minus 36 all over 2. Okay, continue, Kalina. What is 36 minus 36? So negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 0 all over 2. But what is the square root of 0? It's 0, yes? So, and actually I'm kind of regretting, I should have just written that as 0, shouldn't I? Why did I put it as a square root of 0? This is probably not going to work in terms of erasing. Oh, it did. Okay, so negative 6 plus or minus 0 all over 2. Some of you may realize what's happening here. But officially, we were able to take that square root there, weren't we? So officially, we should solve and find, set up to find our, quote, 2 answers. In order to find one of those answers, officially you would do negative 6 plus 0 and divide by 2. What happens when you do negative 6 plus 0? Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. So one of my answers is negative 3. What's the other setup I should technically do? Officially, we should do negative 6 minus 0. Divide by 2. But negative 6 minus 0 is negative 6. Divided by 2 is negative 3. Special case?
Yes.
Yeah. When you get a 0 under that radical, how many answers do we actually end up with? We just actually have one answer. Interesting question. Would Math Excel let you do negative 3 comma negative 3?
No.
No.
I kind of agree. Probably not. But, okay. So, and the key is, as soon as you guys saw the 0, realize there's just one answer. Okay. When there is a 0 under the square root, there's only going to be one answer for this problem. And what that means, these are quadratics, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's an x squared graph look like? X squared graph is a parabola, right? So the idea of when we solve this, it's where the graph crosses the x-axis. In a normal parabola, what happens? It crosses the x-axis at probably 2 places, right? What's happening here is this is only touching the x-axis at the vertex. Okay, so like your x-axis is right here, It's only touching one place instead of two. Okay,
So is there no answer in that? When it's a negative?
it's negative 3.
Okay.
There's just 1 is what it ends up being. Okay, let's try C. X squared plus 4x minus 3 equals 0. Again, you could check product and sum. Not going to happen though. Okay, you can't get the number. It seems like it should work. Multiplying to be negative 3, adding to be 4, but you can't get the signs to work out for it. So, what's the first question?
Is it equal to
Does it equal 0?
Yes.
It does equal 0. I don't know, are you guys writing your ABCs down or not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am. That's my job as a teacher though, right? That way someone later says, whoa, I don't get where these ABCs are coming from. Trying to help here. What's A? 1, because it's ax squared. What's B? 4, because it's 4x. What's C? Negative 3, because it's a constant at the end. No one should walk out of here not knowing your ABCs. And I'm not talking about your preschool ABCs. I'm talking about your algebra ABCs. Okay? X equals. What do I start with? Negative 4 plus or minus square root b squared, so 4 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 3. All over 2 times 1, 2a. Okay, clean up. Negative 4 plus or minus. What's 4 squared? 16. 4 times 1 times 3 is 12. And I see this as a minus times positive times minus. Minus times minus makes it a positive. All over 2. Negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 28 all over 2. What's the square root of 28? Okay, partially right. We'll take it for the moment. Okay, square root of 28 is a decimal, yes? Okay, so we can't, it's not a perfect square. However, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm trying to remember if Math Excel has any like this in here. I don't remember off the top of my head. This answer would be wrong in Math Excel. It's not fully simplified. So, this one is not fully simplified. As we look at this, okay, let me tell you something first of all. Do not simplify the 4 and 2 here.
Sorry, that's what I was thinking.
Okay, do not. That will get it wrong in a heartbeat. This 2 in the denominator has to go with both pieces in the numerator. So, and right now, the square root of 28 has no number out front. So, in this current form, no, we can't simplify in that respect. But here's the catch, and this comes up second semester. However, it's an Algebra 1 topic. Side note here, the square root of 28. It is a decimal. However, there's what we call a perfect square within square root of 28.
Oh, no.
So a perfect square is a number that I can take the square root of. What is a factor of 28? So a number that divides into 28 that we can also take the square root of. 4? Can we take the square root of 4?
Yes.
Does 28 divide by 4?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to rewrite this. Here's my step for you. 28 is the same as saying 4 times 7, yes? I haven't changed the value. That's equivalent. And if you want, you can think of it as square root of 4 times square root of 7. But here's the deal, guys. Do we know the square root of 4? Square root of 4 is 2. Do we know the square root of 7? No, that's a decimal, so it stays square root of 7. So what I'm trying to show you here is that square root of 28 can be rewritten as 2 square root of 7. Actually, here. So let me go back. We're going to keep going a little bit with this problem. X equals, we still had negative 4. Now I'm going to say plus or minus 2 square root of 7 over 2. Okay. Math Excel still would not quite take this.
This is now where you divide your 2.
Okay. Notice, all 3 terms now have a factor of 2. So, and you can think about it a couple of different ways, but if I divide everybody by 2, or the fact that my denominator is 2, what's negative 4 divided by 2? Negative 2, plus or minus 2 square root of 7 divided by 2. 1 square root of 7 or just square root of 7.
So the answer is X equals negative 2 plus or minus square root of 7.
So negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 7. Is that 2 answers?
Yes.
Yes. One of my answers is negative 2 plus the square root of 7. The other answer is negative 2 minus square root of 7. Okay?
So on a
You're not going to see a ton like this where you have to simplify the square roots. I honestly can't remember until I go in and look in Math Excel if you might find some though. Okay? Yes?
on a test, would you accept the first answer? Or would we have to simplify it?
That is a good question. I'm not sure of.
Oh my gosh. Huh. Now that my volume's not turned up.
Okay, we will obviously continue the notes tomorrow. But while you're cleaning up, a little bit of songage.